The massive Imperial flagship Eternal Dominion hung like a metallic moon over Beijing, its shadow crawling across the city as morning broke. 26 support vessels positioned themselves strategically around Earth, their weapons systems passive but visibly ready. Citizens worldwide stared upward, many recording the moment that humanity finally learned we were not alone. Admiral Joe Carrix adjusted his ceremonial armor before activating the planetary broadcast. His 4 upper appendages arranged themselves in what the Xenopsychology Division assured him was a non-threatening posture for primates. The translation software had been calibrated for optimal comprehension across all major Earth languages. "People of Earth," he began, his voice simultaneously broadcasting in 47 languages, "I bring greetings from the Galactic Imperial Union, a brotherhood of 10,000 worlds spanning 3 spiral arms of our galaxy. After monitoring your development for 3 centuries, we have deemed your civilization ready for first contact and potential membership." Screens worldwide displayed the Admiral's vaguely cephalopod features, his skin shifting through patterns of blue and gold that indicated formal diplomatic intent. Behind him stood representatives of various Imperial species, carefully selected to approximate humanoid forms. "Imperial membership offers remarkable benefits," he continued. "Medical technology that will extend your lifespans 3-fold, faster than light travel capabilities, protection from hostile species. In exchange, we request only modest resource contributions and acceptance of Imperial governance oversight." The Admiral paused, mandibles lifting in what his species considered a reassuring smile. "Your world leaders have been contacted with detailed terms. We anticipate your acceptance within 72 hours. The silence that followed stretched uncomfortably. In the United Nations emergency session, representatives from every nation sat motionless. The terms displayed on their screens were clear. Earth would receive technological wonders beyond imagination, but surrender autonomy over key resources and governance decisions. Dr. Amara Chen, selected as Earth's unified representative after distinguished service in both diplomatic and scientific fields, approached the communication array. At 57, her calm demeanor had navigated dozens of international crises. Now she addressed humanity's first extraterrestrial contact. "Admiral Joe Carrix, I speak as Earth's designated representative," she began, her voice steady. "We appreciate your offer and the journey your fleet has undertaken. However, after careful consideration of your terms, Earth must respectfully decline Imperial membership at this time." On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, navigation officers exchanged confused glances. The Admiral's skin briefly flashed crimson before returning to diplomatic blue. "Representative Chen, perhaps I wasn't clear," he responded. "The Empire offers protection from numerous threats you're currently unaware of. Without our support, your civilization remains vulnerable." Dr. Chen's expression remained pleasant but unmoved. "We understand the benefits, Admiral. Our decision stands. Earth requests your fleet depart our solar system within 24 hours. The Admiral's translator struggled with an untranslatable sound expressing disbelief. "No civilization has ever declined Imperial membership. There is a first time for everything, Admiral," Dr. Chen replied. "Perhaps this indicates a gap in understanding between our cultures." As the communication ended, Imperial sensors detected unusual energy signatures emanating from facilities across Earth's surface. The Admiral's science officer noted energy spikes inconsistent with Earth's known technology level. "Primitive fluctuations," the Admiral dismissed. "Likely power grid instabilities from their emotional response." As the Imperial fleet prepared to withdraw temporarily, Admiral Joe Carrix transmitted a final message. "We will return when you reconsider your position. All planets eventually join the Empire." Dr. Chen's response was broadcast to every ship in the fleet. "That would be unwise, Admiral. Project Threshold is already underway." In underground facilities across 6 continents, scientists initiated synchronization sequences as phase shift generators came online for the first time outside of testing conditions. Humanity had prepared for this moment for decades, ever since the first Imperial communications had been intercepted by radio astronomers in 2079. No one knew if the technology would work at planetary scale, but everyone agreed on one thing: Earth would remain free. Commander Vexnor stood on the bridge of the Imperial verdict, his 6 eyes scanning the tactical display with satisfaction. 100 warships arranged in perfect formation approached the Sol system, each vessel gleaming against the void of space. The Emperor himself had authorized this unprecedented show of force. Magnification on the target world, he ordered, his scaled skin shimmering with anticipation. His tactical officer, a slender Phylaxian with remarkable visual processing abilities, adjusted the viewscreen controls. Her tendrils stiffened suddenly. "Commander," she said, voice wavering slightly, "I'm not detecting Earth." Vexenor's primary heart skipped a beat. "Check your instruments again, Officer Thala." "I have, sir, multiple times." Her tendrils twisted in confusion. Where Earth should be, there's nothing. The commander strode to her station, mandibles clicking with irritation. Impossible. A planet doesn't simply vanish. Yet the sensor readings confirmed her assessment. Earth's moon orbited an empty space exactly where the blue-green world should have been. The orbital path was correct. Oceanic tides on the moon followed expected patterns, but the planet itself had disappeared. "Full sensor sweep," Vexnor ordered. "All frequencies, all detection methods." The science division worked frantically, calibrating and recalibrating their instruments. Finally, Chief Scientist Maldrak approached with findings that defied Imperial understanding. "Commander, we've detected a spherical distortion occupying Earth's position," he reported. "It's only visible through specialized subspace harmonic imaging. Whatever this phenomenon is, it doesn't register on conventional sensors." "A cloaking technology," Vexnor suggested. "No, sir," Maldrak replied. "Cloaking would still leave gravitational and particle signatures. This is something else entirely." The commander ordered probes launched toward the distortion. Dozens of advanced reconnaissance devices approached the Earth's position, transmitting data continuously. As each one reached the boundary of the distortion, communication ceased abruptly. Not one probe returned or transmitted from within the phenomenon. In the tense silence that followed, communications officer Zevril straightened suddenly. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission. It's broadcasting on all frequencies simultaneously." "Source," Vexnor demanded. "The distortion field, sir." On screen. The message contained no visual component, only an audio transmission in perfect Imperial standard. "As previously communicated, Earth is no longer accessible. We have withdrawn from galactic affairs. Please respect our privacy." Before Vexnor could respond, the transmission continued with something unexpected. Technical specifications showing energy readings that surpassed the output capabilities of the Empire's largest power stations by orders of magnitude. The shield surrounding Earth's former position appeared to be drawing power directly from the star at the center of the system through a sophisticated energy collection mechanism. "Is this possible?" Vexnor asked his science officer. Maldrak's scales had paled to an ashen gray. The technology to harness stellar energy at this scale would require centuries beyond Earth's development timeline. Even our civilization has only theoretical models for such systems. The commander faced a decision that would define his career. The Imperial protocol was clear: display overwhelming force and demand submission. But how does one intimidate a planet that has removed itself from physical space? "Sir," Officer Thala interrupted, "the distortion is fluctuating." On her display, the spherical anomaly pulsed subtly, as if adjusting to their presence. At the same time, power readings from their own vessels fluctuated in response. "They're scanning us," Maldrak whispered, "or testing defenses." Commander Vexnor made his decision. "Establish a perimeter at minimum safe distance. No vessel approaches within 1 million kilometers of the anomaly. And prepare my personal shuttle. I must make an uncomfortable report to Imperial Center. As the fleet repositioned, communications picked up transmissions between Imperial vessels. Officers and crew members whispered the same bewildered question throughout the fleet. How does one explain losing an entire planet? In the darkness between stars, humanity watched and waited, their centuries-old fear of alien invasion replaced by something entirely new, the quiet confidence of a species that had fundamentally changed the rules of engagement. The Grand Imperial Council chamber fell silent as Dr. Ilara Voss concluded her presentation. Holographic displays surrounding the circular table showed centuries of human history. Their wars, literature, technological progress, and psychological studies. The 30 council members, representing the most powerful species in the Empire, exchanged uncomfortable glances. Grand Councilor Drax, his crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the chamber's light, broke the silence first. You expect us to believe these creatures deliberately concealed their technological capabilities. For what purpose? Dr. Voss, a slight figure among the diverse alien forms, adjusted her spectacles. Though human in appearance, she was born on Proxima Colony and had spent 40 years studying Earth from a scientific distance. Earth has been intercepting our communications since their early radio technology developed, she explained. They've known about the Empire for generations. Historical records show they began preparing defensive measures immediately after confirming our existence. Councillor Xanthar, whose gaseous form hovered within a containment field, pulsed skeptically. Every species resists initially. They all submit eventually. The humans simply found an unusual method of temporary evasion. Respectfully, Councillor, humanity represents something unique in our galactic experience. Dr. Voss countered. They are psychologically incapable of accepting external control. Their entire history demonstrates this pattern. She gestured to the displays showing human revolutions, independence movements, and resistance stories. Their mythology glorifies rebels. Their heroes are those who stand against overwhelming odds. Their most celebrated leaders are those who secured freedom from oppression. You suggest these primitive creatures developed phase shift technology independently? Another counselor asked incredulously. Technology our scientists consider theoretical. The evidence supports this conclusion, Dr. Voss confirmed. Humanity's apparent technological limitations were deliberate. They studied us while we studied them, advancing their defensive capabilities in secret. Grand Councilor Drax's crystalline form vibrated with impatience. This is preposterous. No species has ever resisted Imperial membership permanently. Perhaps that assumption is precisely what they counted on, Dr. Voss suggested quietly. The Empire's standard approach to planetary acquisition has remained unchanged for millennia. Humanity anticipated our methods and developed a countermeasure specifically designed to neutralize them. The council chamber erupted in multiple conversations, some members demanding immediate military action, while others called for further study. High Admiral Zex Vorn, responsible for military operations in 17 sectors, raised a taloned hand for silence. What do you propose, Doctor? We cannot allow a precedent where planets simply disappear rather than join the Empire. Dr. Voss took a deep breath. I recommend we respect their request for non-interference. Attempting to breach their technology could provoke consequences we cannot predict. Her suggestion met with immediate dismissal. The Council voted to commission a special military task force. 6 advanced warships equipped with experimental phase disruptors designed to penetrate any known shielding technology. As the Council adjourned, Dr. Voss returned to her modest quarters in the Imperial Science Academy. Her communication terminal indicated 17 missed messages, all from former colleagues now requesting access to her human research archives. That night, she carefully copied her most important findings to a molecular data crystal smaller than her thumbnail. As she secured it within a pendant around her neck, her assistant Mira entered with disturbing news. Imperial intelligence agents are in the building, Mira whispered. They're confiscating all research related to Earth. Dr. Voss nodded calmly. Expected, but sooner than I anticipated. Begin erasing all backup systems. From her window, she watched distant ships departing toward Earth's solar system. The Empire, in its 10,000-year history, had never encountered a problem it couldn't solve through overwhelming force. Yet her research suggested humanity thrived precisely when facing impossible odds. When threatened, they innovate, she murmured, fingering the pendant that contained her life's work. The Council has just made a grave mistake. Captain Lrax of the Imperial warship Inevitable Conquest adjusted his ceremonial armor before addressing his assembled crew. The briefing chamber buzzed with anticipation as officers from all 6 vessels and the Special Task Force gathered to witness his address. "Today we make history," Lrax announced, his chitinous faceplates shifting to display confidence. "Our mission transcends mere conquest. We represent the technological supremacy of the Empire itself." The display behind him showed schematics of their experimental phase disruptors, weapons designed to penetrate any known defense by destabilizing the quantum structure of energy shields. Billions of credits and decades of research had created these devices specifically for situations where conventional weapons proved insufficient. "The humans have somehow created a localized phase variance," he continued. "But nothing can exist completely outside universal constants. Our disruptors will create a resonance cascade that will force their shield to collapse." The briefing concluded with a traditional Imperial battle hymn. As officers returned to their vessels, Chief Science Officer Trollvex approached the captain privately. "Sir, the latest sensor readings show unusual characteristics in the distortion field," she reported. "The barrier appears to be adapting." "Adapting? To what?" "To us, sir. Each scan we perform results in minute changes to the field's harmonic frequency. It's as if it's learning from our attempts to analyze it." Captain Lrax dismissed her concerns with a gesture. "You attribute consciousness to a defensive barrier. Focus on your duties, Science Officer." As the 6 warships moved into attack formation around Earth's position, long-range sensors detected a small object emerging from the distortion field. "Contact at bearing 227.3, announced the tactical officer. "Object is approximately 2 meters in diameter. Minimal power signature. Appears to be a probe of some kind." "Defensive posture," ordered Lrax. "All sensors on maximum." The probe remained stationary, seemingly studying the Imperial vessels. After several minutes, it broadcast a message in perfect Imperial standard. "This is your only warning. Retreat immediately." Captain Lrax's mandibles clicked in amusement. How thoughtful of them to send a target for weapons practice. "Lock disruptors and destroy it." "Disruptors locked," confirmed the weapons officer. Before he could fire, the probe emitted a pulse of soft blue light that expanded outward like ripples on water. When it touched the lead vessel, all systems immediately went dark. Emergency lighting flickered on as main power failed throughout the ship. Captain Lrax watched in disbelief as his mighty warship, the pride of the Imperial fleet, drifted helplessly in space. Weapons, engines, and communications lay dormant. Through the viewport, he observed the same power failure striking each of the other 5 vessels in sequence. What followed proved more terrifying than the power loss. The ship's artificial intelligence spoke, but not in its usual voice. Instead, a calm human voice addressed the crew. "Systems temporarily suspended. Life support maintained. No casualties necessary." For 3 days, the crews of all 6 vessels remained in this state, alive but powerless. Engineers worked frantically to restore systems, but found themselves encountering brilliant countermeasures at every attempt. It was as if the ship's own technology actively resisted their efforts. On the 4th morning, all systems suddenly reactivated simultaneously across all vessels. The probe had vanished, but a new message played on all frequencies. "Your vessels have been returned intact. There will be no second demonstration. Earth is no longer accessible." Captain Lrax stared out the viewport at empty space where Earth should be. His chief engineer approached with a data tablet, faceplates arranged in the pattern indicating extreme distress. Captain, preliminary analysis shows no damage to our systems. But the phase disruptors, what about them? The underlying principles have been altered. They're now standard energy projectors. The quantum disruption technology has been completely removed from not just the hardware, but all design specifications in our databases. Lrax felt a chill run through his carapace. Not only had the humans neutralized their ships without causing damage, they had selectively erased their most classified weapons technology from existence. The Empire's most advanced warships limped home, their crews unusually quiet. In their eyes, something new had appeared that no Imperial citizen had ever shown before. Fear. The Imperial news feeds made no mention of Earth, the disabled warships, or the mysterious technology that had rendered the Empire's finest vessels temporarily helpless. Official channels continued their usual programming. Stories of glorious expansion, technological achievements, and the benevolent rule of Emperor Zelthrak VY. Yet throughout the 1,000 worlds of the Empire, whispers spread. A cargo pilot from Antara Station claimed his cousin served on one of the returning warships. A maintenance worker in the Imperial shipyards reported seeing strange modifications to vessels that had encountered Earth. In universities, students exchanged encrypted messages about a planet that had rejected Imperial membership and gotten away with it. In a quiet corner of the University of Centauri, Professor Naren Tell finished her xenosociology lecture and noticed a small group of students lingering behind. When the classroom emptied, one approached her desk. "Professor, is it true what they're saying about Earth? That they've discovered how to exist outside normal space?" Professor Tal glanced at the door before responding quietly. "I can only discuss publicly available research materials, Kira, but I suggest you read the work of Dr. Ilara Voss, specifically her papers on human innovation patterns under pressure." Later that evening, Professor Tal received an unexpected visitor. Dr. Voss herself, now thinner and more careworn than her official academy portrait, slipped into her office after hours. "Naren, I can't stay long," Dr. Voss said, checking the windows. "Imperial intelligence is monitoring anyone with expertise in human studies." "What's happening, Ilara?" The official silence is deafening, but rumors are everywhere. Dr. Voss pulled a data crystal from her pendant. "Everything I've learned about humanity is here. My research suggests we fundamentally misunderstood them from the beginning. They don't think like other species we've encountered." She activated a small projector showing human historical patterns. When faced with overwhelming force, humans don't simply surrender or fight directly. They change the rules of engagement entirely. They call it thinking outside the box. Professor Tal studied the patterns. Is it true they developed this phase shift technology themselves? They didn't discover it from precursor ruins or trade with unknown species. "All evidence confirms human origin," Dr. Voss replied. "Earth's historical records show a consistent pattern. Humans implement imperfect solutions and continuously improve them. When the Empire approached Earth, we inadvertently accelerated their development by centuries." The conversation continued late into the night. When Dr. Voss finally departed, Professor Tal made copies of the research and discreetly shared them with trusted colleagues on 17 worlds. Within weeks, underground networks formed across the Empire's academic institutions. Research into phase shift theory, once considered a theoretical curiosity, suddenly became the focus of intense study. On frontier worlds, where imperial control had always been more tenuous, planetary governors received unusual requests from their populations, questions about autonomy, self-governance, and the true benefits of imperial membership. The phrase "no longer accessible" appeared in graffiti on government buildings on 3 different planets. The Emperor, receiving reports of these developments from his intelligence services, summoned his High Council. The closed session lasted 17 hours. When it concluded, Imperial Decree CR 773 was issued. All research into Earth's disappearance and phase shift technology was declared illegal, with penalties ranging from mind-wiping to permanent neural reconfiguration. That night, 1/3 of the Imperial Science Academy's faculty failed to report for evening duties. Their resignation messages, delivered automatically after they disappeared, all contained the same closing line. "We have withdrawn from Imperial affairs. Please respect our privacy." In her hidden laboratory beneath the mountains of Nexus Prime, Dr. Voss worked with a team of scientists who had rejected Imperial restrictions. Their prototype phase shift generator was crude compared to Earth's technology, but the underlying principles were sound. "We're missing something fundamental," said a young physicist named Krell. "The energy requirements alone should make this impossible at planetary scale." Dr. Voss smiled. "That's exactly what makes human innovation so remarkable. They don't accept impossibility as a final answer. They treat it as a temporary obstacle." As Imperial agents raided homes and laboratories across 17 sectors, the resistance moved deeper underground. But the idea itself couldn't be contained. A way to exist beyond the reach of Imperial power had been demonstrated. And once seen, such a possibility could never be unseen. 2 years after Earth's disappearance, senior astronomer Kelvin Dren peered at his monitoring screens with growing concern. Located at the farthest reaches of Imperial space, the Vega Deep Space Observatory operated with minimal oversight, perfect for conducting research the Empire had now forbidden. "Mira, please verify these readings," he called to his assistant. "The distortion field appears to be expanding." Mira Lon, once Dr. Voss's most promising student, adjusted her instruments and confirmed his observations. Rate of expansion is consistent at approximately 4 million kilometers per standard month. It's not an equipment malfunction. The holographic display showed the strange phase shift barrier growing steadily outward from Earth's position. In the months since they'd begun secret observations, it had engulfed Mars and was now approaching the asteroid belt. If it maintains this rate, Kelvin calculated, it will eventually encompass the entire solar system. Mira ran additional simulations. The barrier's composition remains unchanged, same quantum signature, same resistance to penetration. They're not just protecting Earth now. They're claiming their entire star system. The observatory's secure communication system chimed softly. Mira's expression tightened as she read the incoming message. "Imperial security forces have raided 3 more research facilities. Central University's entire physics department has been detained." Kelvin sighed. "We need to transmit our findings to the resistance network before they find us too." "Wait," Mira interrupted, studying her screen intently. "We're detecting unusual activity at the system's edge. Imperial ships, a lot of them." Telescopic imaging revealed a massive vessel moving into position near the outer boundary of the Sol system, far larger than standard Imperial warships. Its distinctive profile was unmistakable. "The supernova cannon," Kelvin whispered. "They're going to attempt to collapse the star." Designed to destabilize stellar cores, the supernova cannon represented the ultimate expression of Imperial power, a weapon capable of destroying entire solar systems. It had been deployed only twice in Imperial history, both times against civilizations that had attempted full-scale rebellion. "We need to warn Earth," Mira said, fingers flying across her console. "If they even can be warned," Kelvin replied. "We still don't know if communications can penetrate the barrier." Before they could act, their long-range sensors detected something unexpected: human outposts on distant dwarf planets and moons throughout the outer solar system. Previously unnoticed, these facilities now powered up simultaneously, becoming visible to Imperial scans. More surprising still was the behavior of these outposts when Imperial scout ships approached. There was no defensive posturing, no attempt to hide or flee. Instead, the humans extended communications, inviting Imperial observers to land and witness what they termed the next phase. Admiral Kvek, architect of 100 successful planetary subjugations, personally led a small delegation to a research station on Pluto. His mission was reconnaissance before the supernova cannon fired. understand the enemy's capabilities, and determine if there were any final technologies worth extracting before destroying the system. The landing party was met by a silver-haired human who introduced himself simply as Dr. Rodriguez, station director. His calm demeanor betrayed no concern about the Imperial weapons trained on him. "You're just in time," he said, checking a device on his wrist. "The phase shift begins in 3 minutes." The Admiral's mandibles clicked in agitation. "What is the meaning of this? You invite us here knowing our intentions." "Of course," Dr. Rodriguez replied. "We believe in informed consent. Admiral, you should understand what you're witnessing. The most significant technological leap in this galaxy's history." Before Kvek could respond, the human activated a device no larger than a standard food replicator. The air around the outpost shimmered slightly, and the stars visible through the viewport shifted positions subtly. "What have you done?" the Admiral demanded. Dr. Rodriguez smiled and extended his hand, directly through the Admiral's arm, as if it were mist. "Nothing harmful. We've simply moved slightly out of phase with your dimension. You can see us, but conventional interaction is now impossible." The Admiral's face contorted with rage. "This is an act of war." "No," Dr. Rodriguez corrected gently. "This is an act of peace, the most profound kind. We remain neighbors who cannot interfere with each other. Isn't that preferable to conflict?" As the Imperial delegation hastily returned to their ships, they received reports of similar phase shifts occurring simultaneously at every human outpost throughout the solar system. The message became undeniable. Humanity was not trapped behind their shield. They were expanding through it, creating a growing region of space where Imperial power simply could not reach. Dr. Ilara Voss stood before an unusual gathering in the abandoned mines beneath Nexus Prime. The cavernous space, once used for extracting rare minerals, now served as the central meeting place for what had become known as the Threshold Movement. Scientists from 30 worlds, resistance leaders, and even 3 Imperial counselors who had secretly broken with the Emperor filled the makeshift amphitheater. "I've completed my analysis of communications from human outposts before they phase shifted," she announced, her voice echoing slightly in the vast chamber. Gray had crept into her hair during years of evading Imperial justice, but her eyes remained sharp with intellectual fire. She activated a holographic simulation showing 2 overlapping spheres. "Earth's shield isn't a conventional barrier as we initially believed. What we're witnessing is a dimensional phase variance of unprecedented sophistication." The hologram expanded, showing the modified region of space around Earth. "The humans haven't covered or hidden their planet. They've shifted it slightly out of phase with our dimension. Earth exists in the same physical location, but in a parallel pocket of reality." Murmurs spread through the audience. An Imperial counselor rose, his ornate robes identifying him as representing the Cygnus sector. "Are you suggesting this technology was created by humans, not discovered from precursor ruins or provided by some unknown benefactor?" "All evidence confirms human origin," Dr. Voss replied. "What's more remarkable? They've been developing it for generations. Our long-range monitoring detected their early radio telescopes intercepting Imperial communications over a century ago. They've been preparing for first contact since before we officially discovered them." The implications stunned the audience. What the Empire had dismissed as primitive technology was merely what humans had allowed to be seen. Their actual technological level had been deliberately concealed. "The phase variance explains why probes disappear when entering the field," she continued. "They still exist, but in a state that no longer interacts with our dimension. Humans can observe our universe, study it, and even traverse it when they choose, but remain beyond our ability to affect them." A resistance leader from the Orion world stood. "But why reveal their outposts now? Why allow Imperial observers to witness the phase shifts? If secrecy protected them this long, why expose their capabilities?" Dr. Voss smiled. "Because they're offering us a choice. The phase shift technology creates something unprecedented in galactic history. a way to exist beyond the reach of Imperial control without resorting to violent resistance. She gestured to a group of scientists working with equipment in the corner of the cavern. Our team has been attempting to recreate the phase variance based on observational data. We've finally succeeded on a small scale. The lead scientist activated their device, and a small spherical region of the cavern shimmered slightly. Objects placed within it became translucent and could no longer be physically touched. The humans are giving the galaxy a gift, Dr. Voss concluded. Freedom without conflict, coexistence without subjugation. That night, the first non-human world successfully implemented a phase shift device. The small agricultural planet Tellus IV, long exploited for its resources, simply disappeared from Imperial sensors. Within a week, 3 more followed. Frontier worlds with limited Imperial presence, but significant populations. The resistance wasn't stealing worlds through violence or conventional rebellion. The worlds simply slid sideways into inaccessibility, taking their populations and resources with them. Citizens made their choice: remain in the Empire or step into a new kind of existence where Imperial control became physically impossible. Imperial fleets sent to investigate found only the same impenetrable distortion fields surrounding each planet. Traditional power, armies, navies, and weapons became suddenly, startlingly irrelevant against a technology that didn't fight back, but simply made interaction impossible. In his vast palace on Imperial Center, Emperor Xelthrak VI received increasingly disturbing reports. The carefully constructed mythology of Imperial invincibility was crumbling. The Empire, built on the fundamental assumption that control of physical space meant control of civilization, faced a threat no military could counter. For the first time in 10,000 years of Imperial history, expansion had not only halted, it had begun to reverse. 5 years after Earth's disappearance, Emperor Xelthrak VI addressed his increasingly sparse council chamber. Over a third of the seats remained empty, their occupants having joined their homeworlds in phase shifting beyond Imperial reach. The Emperor's normally iridescent scales had dulled to a flat gray, reflecting the diminished glory of his reign. "This ends today," he declared, his voice echoing in the chamber that once barely contained the full council. "I have commissioned a final solution. The entire Imperial fleet will target Sol, Earth's star. If these humans wish to hide in their dimensional pocket, they can do so in darkness and cold." No counselor dared object openly, though several exchanged concerned glances. The destruction of an entire star system violated even the Empire's flexible ethical standards. More practically, many doubted whether even the supernova cannon could affect a phase-shifted stellar system. 3 days later, nearly 6,000 Imperial vessels converged on Earth's solar system in the largest military operation in Imperial history. At the center of the armada, the supernova cannon moved into firing position, a weapon so massive it required its own propulsion system and escort fleet. Admiral Ventral, supreme commander of the operation, stood on the bridge of the flagship Imperial Destiny. Begin targeting sequence. Primary focus on the star's coronosphere. As the targeting systems locked onto Sol, something unprecedented occurred. Every vessel in the Imperial fleet simultaneously received a direct transmission originating from within the phase shield, the first communication from Earth in years. The face that appeared on view screens throughout the fleet belonged to Dr. Amara Chen, now visibly older, but with the same calm demeanor she had displayed during first contact. "Admiral Ventral," she began, "we've monitored your approach and understand your intentions. Before you act, we offer a choice." The Admiral's mandibles clicked with irritation. "There are no choices left, human. Your technology has undermined Imperial authority across 17 sectors. The Empire must respond." "We understand," Dr. Chen nodded, "which is why we're transmitting these specifications to every vessel in your fleet." Data streams appeared alongside her image, complete schematics for phase shift technology, with detailed implementation protocols adapted for various planetary environments. "This isn't a weapon," she continued. "It's freedom. We never wanted conflict with the Empire. We only wished to determine our own destiny. Now we extend that option to everyone." As the schematics spread through the fleet, an extraordinary thing happened. Ship after ship broke formation. Crew members from worlds already phase-shifted contacted family members for the first time in years. Others, seeing opportunity, began discussions about establishing independent colonies using the new technology. The Admiral watched helplessly as his carefully orchestrated offensive crumbled from within. "This is treason," he shouted as another tactical group disengaged. "The Emperor will have you all executed." "The Emperor's power depends on physical access to his subjects," replied his executive officer quietly. "That paradigm has changed forever." The Imperial flagship stood increasingly alone as the massive fleet dispersed. The Emperor's final order to fire upon Sol reached ships already transitioning into phase shift, their weapons rendered harmless against the dimension they were leaving behind. 20 years later, the galaxy existed in a state unlike any in recorded history. The Empire remained, but as one political entity among many rather than an overwhelming force. Most worlds existed in phase-shifted states, appearing and connecting with each other by choice rather than coercion. A new interstellar body emerged, the Threshold Cooperative, facilitating communication and trade between phase-shifted worlds. Earth established embassies in a neutral phase where representatives from all civilizations could meet as equals. This dimensional crossroads became known simply as the Threshold, a place between realities where power came not from weapons, but from ideas. In the Threshold's Grand Exchange Hall, an elderly Admiral Jokirix, the first Imperial officer to encounter Earth, met Dr. Chen for the second time. No longer an admiral, just a curious citizen of a much-changed galaxy. "I spent years wondering," he admitted, "how your people developed this technology, when our scientists still struggle to fully understand it." Dr. Chen smiled. "We had motivation you lacked. The Empire expanded because it could. Earth innovated because it had to." She gestured to the hall around them, where species from 1,000 worlds mingled freely. Necessity creates possibilities that complacency never discovers. Together they looked out through the Threshold's transparent walls, where both normal space and phase-shifted dimensions could be observed overlapping. Separate yet connected, independent yet in harmony. Earth's message to the galaxy stood revealed in its fullest form. True civilization begins when each world becomes accessible by choice, never by force.